I think she shouldn't marry him. This is going to sound so heartless and cold. I know people are going to be like, this is horrible.
And feminist, woman power, we get it. But we can't be led by conversations like this, especially when this woman is coming from trauma.
All I'm gonna say is, Big Mel, Big Melanie. Listen, Melanie. That's my favorite. That's my review. That's my whole review.
Welcome to another episode of the That's Scary with Melanie P podcast. I'm your girl, Melanie P. And I'm in lighter spirits today. And do you know why that is? And it's because last time I was on here, child, we was talking about coons and Trump and all types of stuff. But no. I don't want to talk no more about Trump. It really does something seeing all of the social media news outlets, CNN, everywhere you turn is he about to do this, he about to do that, he signed that, he looking crazy. Like, I just can't. Like, it is so toxic and it is so detrimental for you to covet and keep your mental health. Everywhere I turn, if it's not the plastics are going to get us, we're inhaling plastic. We don't have no medications. We don't have no Medicaid. We don't have this. He coming for us, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. This is a Trump-free space. There was a podcast, a new podcast that I am new to following. It's called We Need to Talk. And it's a fine black man. I think he's married, but it's a fine black man who's over this podcast. And I hit the subscribe button today because he had a very interesting video that just popped up with this young lady. Her name is, and I don't want to butcher it. Her name is Chidera, Eggerue, if I'm pronouncing that right, and I know I'm probably not. She is a British Nigerian, and he had her recently on his podcast. And I'm going to just say this right here. We all have opinions. I'm very much for the black women. I'm rooting for everybody black, always, period, hard stop, always. We don't always have to agree, but I respect your opinion. And going forward, you might not agree with what I got to say, but it is what it is. Chidera Eggerue, she started a hashtag years ago, back in 2017, Saggy Boobs Matter. It's a hashtag that gained prominence on Twitter and Instagram back in 2017 to challenge the convention that women with large breastises must wear a bra. If their breastises sag, as a teenager, she felt very insecure about having big breasts. She did not look like the models like myself on the packaging. I'm joking. On the packaging of her first bra. She later decided to embrace her shape and posted a picture wearing a dress without a bra in September 27th using the hashtag blah, blah, blah. She has a blog called The Slum Flower that highlights fashion that's not covered in mainstream. She said that she refers to the concept of her name because she grew up like a rose in the concrete. She was in 2018. She hosted Newsbeat, a documentary that explored hair loss as she's experienced alopecia. She has been the creative director for inclusive home rental organization that caters to multiracial audience. I feel like she might describe herself as a feminist of sorts. But on the most recent episode of We Need to Talk, he interviewed Miss Chidera and entitled it Why Women Are Saying No to Traditional Roles. Now, I will say this. We're past the coonery of it all in terms of Nelly and his tribe of coons. But I really don't want to add to the toxicity of this debate culture. I always talk about this, the debate culture. I don't want to talk about, the negative sides of being a wife. Let's get into this conversation.
We want this, right? Okay. Did you ever say that marriage is sex work?
I did, yeah. And I expanded and I said that marriage is the lowest paid form of sex work. And people were really annoyed about it. Because
The lowest.
yes.
The lowest
paid form of sex work. I believe marriage is the lowest paid form of sex work within the dynamic of cis hetero marriage between man and woman.
How so?
The reason why I say that is because when we look at the origins of marriage and we observe this ongoing, growing trend of the trad wife becoming this thing that we're seeing everywhere, there's this idea that the woman is there to serve and to be the homekeeper. And the idealized arrangement is that the man makes the money, he financially takes care of the home, and you get love and acceptance and the title of wife in return. And now when we look at marriages just more commonly within our local sphere, outside of the sensationalized.
I want to stop it right here really quickly. Before I give my thoughts on this first piece of this interview, I want to preface it by saying I originally saw just this clip. And as I continue to play, we'll kind of get an idea of like my opinions and my thoughts. And I'm very open to yours. So make sure you leave your comments and your opinions below. But if you look at the full interview of this podcast, she comes from, in my opinion, she comes from a traumatic childhood. And when you see people who have these left field ideologies about relationship, about marriage, I find that typically it comes from some type of experience that they've had, oftentimes negative. So for example, not seeing an example of a healthy marriage, a healthy relationship growing up, not having a healthy male presence or a healthy female presence in the home growing up, oftentimes, especially if there's no healing and there's no therapy, that manifests in your adulthood to having a negative, pessimistic outlook on marriage and relationships. And when you go back and watch this full podcast, you'll see that I feel like her negative, or I don't even want to say negative, because I'm sure to her they're positive, but her views on the trad wife and traditional wife roles, I feel like they're rooted in what she saw and what she experienced growing up. She said that her and her mom are not on speaking terms. And she said that her and her father just got back on speaking terms in the past 2 years. So take that information and do with it what you will. But I want to say that being a traditional wife, having a husband who provides for you, doing whatever you determine to be a traditional wife role, doing those roles, if it's all healthy and it's consensual and you're happy, there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. I find that a lot of women, and I want to specify Black women because I'm speaking from my experience, who are traditional wives, and they take a lot of pleasure. They're happy. They're well taken care of by great Black men. They keep a home. They're happy with keeping their home. They're not disrespected. Their husband does provide for them, and they're happy. And that is not an uncommon story, especially in the Black community. So when I initially heard this, and I'm going to finish playing, it's kind of triggering to me because I don't like this perception of healthy Black marriages, healthy, happy Black wives don't exist. And they do. Let's keep it going.
It's trad wife content. What we're seeing a lot is many unhappily married people, specifically women. I receive a lot of messages from women who tell me that in their marriage, they essentially have to, it's not that they have to, but they feel like they have to perform sexual favors for their husband in order for things to be done. Whether that's, for example, I don't know if you might have seen this flying around on the internet. There was an interview between Katy Perry and Alex Cooper on Alex Cooper's podcast called Call Her Daddy. And Katy Perry was saying that within her marriage to Orlando Bloom, if he closes the cupboards and, cleans the dishes, and he's going to get his dick sucked as essentially a reward for closing the cupboard, washing the plates, just being a tidy human being. So we see a bartering system in place here where outside of Katy Perry, because Katy Perry's statement is representative of what a lot of women are doing in their marriages, where you do that thing he likes and then you get.
I'm going to stop this right here because the way that I'm perceiving what she's saying is coming with a very negative I don't mean bad. I just mean it's coming from a place of these are negative things. So I'm assuming, I don't have to assume, she's never been married. She said that she's never even allowed a man to come to her home. We that have been married or are married or have even been in relationships where you live with a man, men can be very messy. Men can be very, just leave a mess around the house. But that's not even the point. The point is when you're in a marriage, there's give and take. It's not just, the woman having to do something for the man in terms of he's a slob and, oh, wow, if you clean up and close the, put the toilet top down, then I'm gonna give you a blowjob. You know, first of all, that could be very fun. That could be very fun. Some women enjoy giving blowjobs. And at the end of the day, I don't like her saying this as if the woman is handcuffed and tied to the bed or to somewhere. And, you know, she's having to put her bonnet on and put on her maid outfit and look matronly. And this is an episode of, what's that Hulu thing? I'll put it somewhere on the screen. But, you know, she's presenting it as if women are being chained and they have to do these things and they don't want to do these things. And I'm so angry that I have to give this man a blowjob. And I'm not saying that there's not cases where women don't want to give a man a blowjob. And whatever the case might be, we know that exists. But in my experience, in relationship, in marriage, and just from my friends, that comes with it. And it's not something that you're sitting here angry about or you're sitting here wanting to leave and you can't. It can be playful. You know, it could be a playful situation. It's not just, oh my God, you know, here's a little treat. You cleaned up behind yourself because you're an idiot and you provide no other value. So now I literally have to do this thing that I don't want to do just to appease you. Like, that's not the true story.
Yeah, a particular need met. Now, a lot of people found issue with what I said because there's this idea that the sex worker versus the married woman are in completely different worlds where, hierarchically speaking, the married woman is at the top of the hierarchy because she's married, she's been chosen, she's done the thing, she's got...
I will argue that she is at the top of the hierarchy. You know, a married woman doesn't have customers and isn't selling her body in exchange for money and gifts to random men. We have to not make fetch happen, and we have to stop making these stupid things cool and popular. I get where, you know, the feminist movement comes from, and I understand it. But at the end of the day, it's not cool, and it's not something that you should be proud of and say that if you're a sex worker, you're on the same level as a wife because she's also bartering something for money. No, she is a woman who is married to a man in the eyes of the Lord, in the eyes of, you know, tax paperwork. You know, it's not the same thing. A sex worker is not the same thing as a traditional wife.
The ring, but the sex worker is positioned towards the bottom of the power structure because of how society views women who engage with men for financial benefit and the shaming surrounding that. And so the whole pushback towards me referring to marriage as sex work was rooted in this place from married women saying, how dare you liken me to a sex worker? I am not a sex worker. When in reality, as long as you're choosing to partner with men, there is an element of using your sexuality to get what you want. And within sex work exists on a spectrum.
There is a element. It is not the main course. Listen, I ain't a sex worker. Do your thing. I'm not saying that what you doing is, I ain't got to do it. So at the end of the day, but you can't compare a wife to a sex worker. I agree. Is there an element of sex work for the wife? There's an element of sex work in a healthy marriage on the husband. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to get out of this ideology that, oh, lowly wife who is a slave to her husband and, you know, I gotta give him sex. Does that happen? Yes, it does. But in a healthy situation, it's not something that she's either not wanting to do or feels like she's trapped into doing. In a healthy situation, There is give and take, but it's not just on the wife's side. It's on the husband's side as well if you're in a healthy situation. And again, I feel like she's coming from a place to where she's not been in a healthy situation and she's not seen a healthy situation. So her feministic views are not coming from, to me, a healthy place in the beginning.
So there are more physical forms of sex work, which you would probably call full service sex work, which involves sleeping with someone and doing more physical acts.
Okay.
And then when we look towards the complete opposite side of the spectrum of sex work, there are things like, for example, phone sex operators, there are dominatrixes, there are people who sell foot pictures. Whilst what they're doing might not immediately come across to us as sex work based on a definition we've all been taught, it's all this idea of selling your sensuality and exchanging your erotic interactions for you to get something that you want. There are married women who are reluctantly having sex with their husbands, who are reluctantly engaging in sexual favors because they know that that's what's going to make sure that the bills are going to get paid this month.
Right.
The kids' school uniform's going to be paid for. They're essentially taking one for the team being.
Maybe I, what women, and I'm sure that there are some, but where is this bulk of women who have to suck their man's penis or sleep with them for their kids to have food and gas to drive, places? Like, I guess I'm kind of confused, and I'm not being funny, and please leave in the comments if this is your experience, because honestly, I would love to hear it. But where are these women? Like, where are these women?
Them and their kids.
Right.
And then there are married women who recognize the power that they hold within the institution and infrastructure of marriage. And this is how I would behave if I was a married woman, where I want to go on vacation to XYZ. Okay. So I'm not going to have sex with him for a while. And when I know that I want to ask him or pose the idea of this thing that I really want us to do, I know that if I bring a tit out, he's likely to say yes. Or if I engage sexually with him, if I have sex with him, if I do the thing he likes, we're getting closer to the thing that I want to do. So I'm using my sexuality to my benefit because
She's making this much deeper than it has to be. Like, I think that she's trying to find any avenue to align sex work with traditional marriage. I think that she's very much against traditional marriage. So she's trying to find any parallel that she can. It's not that deep. It's really not that deep. Like, it's not that deep.
Part that I'm struggling with is the assets part, right? So are you saying, let's say, for example, we have a gentleman who, let's say he's 25 years old, and it's a heterosexual relationship. You have the woman who has a higher level of education, makes more money than he does, has more assets than he does. But he's a nice guy. And he says he loves her.
He said.
What do you think should happen in that situation? And he wants to marry her. What should she do?
I think she shouldn't marry him. So it's going to sound so heartless and cold. I know people are going to be like, this is horrible. What do you mean? She's already got her own assets anyway. Right. He just, all she needs is just his love. Like, if I was in that scenario you've just described which I probably am really, I have a lot going for me. I'm successful in my own right. And that's the more reason why I'm always looking for like what's out there, what's bigger. There's always someone who's got more than me. I can learn from him. I can take his assets.
Right. And do it. So Chidera, the reason why I asked about that scenario is because that was me and my wife.
Oh.
Now I'm really glad that he used this as an example. I don't want to get too deep in the water here, but she's coming from a feminist standpoint, and we understand that. And we understand that if you are a woman who is making all this money, right? Because what did Dr. Bryant say? You have to use your intuition when it comes to a man and have to understand that you don't date or marry off of potential 100%. You have to use your intuition and your brain. I think in this conversation, she is basically kind of pushing the fact that if he can't afford my lifestyle, if he cannot provide full financial funding, then you need to run. And I just don't agree with that. And I really feel like that is the current conversation now in the Black community that is really keeping us divided. I really want women to focus on understanding, their worth. We get it. We understand feminist, woman power. We get it. But we can't be led by conversations like this, especially when this woman is coming from trauma. Like her views and opinions are not really based on 100% facts. They're rooted in traumatic experiences that she experienced as a child. Again, she's just now in a space where she's talking to her father. She's not even talking to her mother. And listen, we hope and pray for her that she gets the help and the healing that she needs. But just to be on a platform where it's almost like she's denouncing women who, enjoy having the traditional wife role, and not even putting them down, but almost putting them down and comparing them to sex workers and trying to push that narrative, and almost kind of, saying that men are just so dumb and sexually led that they can only see through a sexual mindset. And I get that most people are going to likely agree with that piece of it, but I just don't want to think that our men are lack that much discipline, that all they are is someone that can barter with a woman for little breadcrumbs and dog treats. Basically, is how she's saying it. Again, this is where we have to use our common sense. If a man has no value to you, and you can clearly see that he's not going to have value to you, he has no plan, he has nothing to offer you, and you can clearly see that, then yeah, run, don't be with him. But you cannot sit here and say that, if a man doesn't make the exact same that you do, but he has other things of value to offer you that you can understand in your mind as a woman, will make up for that 10,000 maybe a year that he's lacking, or that 5,000 a year that he's lacking. Like, it'll make up for it. You have to be situational and understand your situation. But I feel like this kind of conversation coming from a woman, especially coming from a young woman that doesn't have a bunch of experience, it's just very detrimental.
Exactly us. At 25, my wife had a master's degree. I didn't have a master's degree yet. She was working in a law firm. She was making much more money than I was. Mm-hmm. And she was wealthier. She had more assets. She had a higher net worth than I did at 25. And then we got married at 25.
That's really young.
And she did something that I know you're going to say was insane. I wanted to start a business and I didn't have any money. And you know what she did?
Did she invest in you?
She liquidated her retirement fund.
Girl, where you at? Girl.
She liquidated her. So
do we not understand that that's what a marriage is? Like, she is so stunned by a healthy marriage. Like, she is so stunned that his wife wanted to help him progress his career because she saw in him what he was capable of doing, and that he proven to her, I'm certain, that he was worth her investing and pouring into her husband. She is just flabbergasted by just a simple, healthy relationship.
All of her savings for retirement.
She took that out. She took the penalty. Be very cautious of who we make children with. Said, be very intentional about who we make children with.
Started with that.
And create the most loving and healthy and happy and peace-filled home.
It is.
Because what I'm seeing is a woman who has not had the most positive experiences with men.
She didn't.
It started in her home.
The fact that I said
with her parents.
If she looked at
manifested
my assets,
in
if she looked at
the real world with not feeling like she measured up, no pun intended, to other women
be here sitting in front of
because of her breasts. And somehow we end up at a space to where you don't even feel comfortable having your partner
I've seen you to be,
in your home.
I don't
want to be a part of a movement that moves men from every aspect. She also talked about in this interview.
The 4B movement essentially is a movement that was radically created by women who want to completely abstain and divest from anything to do with men.
I'm not understanding why you would want to. She's never experienced totally not have anything. And I think she's 30 years old. She's never experienced love. She just has not had good experiences when it comes to intimacy. It is so imperative. And her views on being a wife, her views on just being a woman in general are extremely skewed. And I really feel like we have to be careful. We really have to be careful as a society. But speaking from the Black community, it goes back to, I feel like I'm saying the same shit over and over again, but we're so busy fighting each other that we're fast forwarding generations and creating generation after generation of generational toxicity. Let me know your thoughts on this, y'all. The 4B movement. Do we even need men? Do we need men? I don't know. I guess we don't need men, 4B, traditional wife. Tell me your thoughts on women, traditional wives being that of sex workers, being, equivalent to sex workers, and for there even to be a conversation of sex workers being on a higher in the hierarchy compared to just a wife and a mother. To me, this screams, I need therapy. And here's the thing, what would change all of her thoughts, would change her whole opinion, is if and when she experiences a safe love, I guess maybe with a man, I'm assuming, I don't know. But just for shits and giggles, let's say she meets a man and he's an amazing man that makes her feel seen, that makes her feel heard, that provides for her in a healthy way. She has children. I guarantee that all of this feminist energy will change. And it's funny because I remember in the beginning of my podcast, some men kept referring to me as a feminist. And if this is what a feminist is, child, I don't want it. I just don't want it. Anyway, y'all, let me know what you think, and I will see you on the next episode.